Lots more to talk about. Tom Slater, as I say, is still with us. Just to recap a little bit on what Donald Trump has had to say. He's been opening his latest golf course, and he says he's going to be putting out fires all over the world when he returns to Washington, D.C. today. He's going to play the golf course very quickly and go back to D.C. He said, we did one yesterday, as you know. We stopped the war. We've stopped about 5 wars. So that's much more important than playing golf, as much as I like it. He also had praise for John Swinney, the First Minister of Scotland, with whom he had dinner alongside Keir Starmer last night. I mean, can you imagine 2 men you would least want to have dinner with if you were Donald Trump? Keir Starmer, I'm the leader of the free world. Yeah. I'm the most powerful man in the world. And I'm on a golf trip, and I end up having dinner with Keir Starmer and John Swinney.
You'd better crack with kind of 2 regional managers or something like that. Similar kind of levels
middle
of
managers.
Charisma. I mean, it's
assistants. No, are they assistants to the regional managers?
Trump did most of the talking. And not because he's the most powerful man in the world, because what have those 2 got to say for themselves?
I'd love to meet Trump and have a talk-off with him. I bet I could win. Trump said that Swinney was a terrific guy and loves golf and loves the people of this country. You're a really special guy, he said. There we are. He also talked about that US-UK trade pact. He said it was a great deal for everybody. It was a very big deal, a great deal for the country, a great deal for everyone. I just want to thank Keir Starmer and everybody who worked so hard on it. It's very interesting, of course, the trade deal with the EU, hailed as the biggest deal ever, being very much criticised by the French Prime Minister and the German Chancellor.
No, it looked and smelt like a capitulation, didn't it, really? And it was a bit of a reminder, wasn't it, that we were told that the EU was, absolutely impossible to get one over on, that you couldn't possibly play hardball with them, but maybe we would have gone a little bit further. Obviously, we don't have the might of the global economic and military hegemon at our disposal, but they've no clue what they're doing.
No, indeed. But they were on 30%, weren't they, tariffs, and now down to, or 25 down to 15%, but we're on 10. I've lost track, frankly. These seem to change every 5 minutes, but we've got lower rates. The key thing there, bear in mind, our EU negotiations post-Brexit, with Theresa May sold us down the river, and basically, the people doing the negotiations until we got some people who actually were Brexiteers in, like Frost. But basically, they were trying to give us a bad deal because they wanted it to be a bad deal, so they thought people would then vote to go back in again.
They might as well have sat on the other side of the negotiating table. It would have made a block.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. It was absolutely outrageous. Again, Keir Starmer and people like that who would be, pushing that along as well as the shadow Brexit secretary. We digress, though. Donald Trump told Starmer yesterday his advice on how to win the next election, how to beat Nigel Farage. Let's have a little watch and listen to what he had to say.
Generally speaking, the one who cuts taxes the most, the one who gives you the lowest energy prices and the best kind of energy, the one that keeps you out of wars. He's kept you out of wars. And in your case, a big immigration component, because I know that your attitude has become strong on immigration, strong on the toughness of immigration.
Strong on the toughness of immigration. I'm not sure he really knows what's really going on. I mean, I was saying on the show yesterday, shouldn't Keir Starmer take advice from Donald Trump on things like, net zero? He was quite right about the wind turbines, but also on immigration, illegal immigration. There's no doubt at all. Keir Starmer he's in a 40% rise. Donald Trump has basically cut it by about 90% or something on the border with Mexico.
I know exactly. He should be taking his advice, but he's not going to. Is he? Because I think with Keir Starmer, just on this issue, as with many others, net zero, what have you, he just hasn't quite got his head around the fact that not only are these things real problems, doing real damage in the here and now, but also people have noticed they're not going to put up with it. There's this kind of sense of, give us a few more years and you'll have the green energy you need. Actually, if you just let us tinker around the edges, we'll sort out the migration problem, or maybe you just will stop noticing it. Those days are over, but he still hasn't quite realised
But also
that.
the power of when people do notice it and say it. And I still remember when Nigel Farage first went out on a boat in the Channel and was pointing out these migrant boats arriving. And again, absolutely decried as a horrible racist. These were desperate asylum seekers. And even when Labour talk about needing to stop the boats, it's nearly always about because these people are drowning in the Channel. I've got to say, I've got to the point where, and I know I sound like a horrible human being at this point, and certainly not kids drowning, because they shouldn't be on those boats at all. People should be something more prosecuted for putting their kids on those boats. But but I find it hard to have concern for people who are choosing to get on a dinghy. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to look at a dinghy with 50 people on it and go, yeah, maybe that's not safe. You want to take your life in your hands to go from a perfectly safe country. It's not like you're being shot at on the beaches of France and you're desperately trying to escape a totalitarian ruler or anything. You're perfectly safe. If you choose to get on that boat, yes, I still want them to be rescued if they're in trouble, all of that, but I struggle to think that is the highest priority for this country.
But even without wanting to sound like a sort of bleeding heart liberal where this is concerned, the fact that we've had governments happily preside over a completely broken system, which does incentivise some people, not many people, and yes, they do have responsibility for taking their own lives in their hands, to just run the gauntlet of smuggling gangs across the continent, of this perilous crossing, conditions in migrant camps both in France and living in the black market in the UK once they get over here. I mean, all of this it's a moral horror story all over the shop. And the fact that people have successive governments have been relaxed about letting it continue because to deal with it would make them feel uncomfortable, or it would just admit that there was a problem.
Yes, but as you said, we've noticed. We've noticed, and not only have we noticed, and we've been talking about it, shouting bigot and racist and hateful and all the other words. It doesn't work anymore. Yeah. It doesn't. You can't just say we're all Tommy Robinson. You can't just call us all far right. No, it doesn't work anymore.
It's not. It's also really just this clearly cannot hold. I mean, even in those migrant hotels in Epping, one of them was burnt down a few weeks ago, or a few months ago, I should say, that someone attempted to start a fire again in the Bell Hotel. It was the person who's been arrested, allegedly for doing this, was a resident of the hotel themselves. This is becoming just a complete mess for everyone concerned, whether inside those hotels, outside those hotels, in the community. It's not sustainable. And as you say, the difference is now people have noticed and they're not dealing with they're not accepting the gaslighting answers that we've had.
They're refusing. And again, and Isabel Oakeshott, we just spoke to expose of what's going on inside one particular hotel, which is quite clearly a luxurious hotel, 4 poster beds. Very so again, the sort of place you might go for your wedding anniversary, and as a special treat. I'm sorry, but these young men are living there. They're working. They're being given free meals a day, accommodation. Lots of people are really struggling every single day to put food on the table for their kids and pay their rent and pay their bills. And they're getting everything for free. And I think people are completely reasonable to say, no, I'm sorry, that is not good enough and it's not going to wash anymore. Again, Tories ignored it for years, then paid lip service to it. Labour have only paid lip service to it so far. They've not done anything about it. And they're going to say we're going to get people out of the hotels. They want to get people out of the hotels into homes because it won't show up as much. But that's even worse because these people will be in the community. There'll be no monitoring, not such as there is at the moment. That is an even bigger disaster. And they will be competing with, they're often offering double the rent, Serco and other companies. It's going to be an absolute disaster for local people. Local people are not going to put up with it. And I'm with Nigel Farage, and I do think we are going to see more protests. I want them to be peaceful. They need to be peaceful. In a democratic country, there's no excuse for protests not to be peaceful. But I can see why things end up, people are very angry, end up turning out the way they do. And we're going to talk about this with Richard Tice, actually, coming up in the next half hour, the deputy leader of the party. A lot of this ties in, again, with the whole sort of that. You've got Yvette Cooper as Home Secretary, who's someone who I've interviewed a number of times. Hasn't come on the show for years because, I expect her to answer questions. Sorry about that, Yvette. But, asking her once about, border, like, well, how many, what level of migration would you accept? Or, and again, how many zeros? How many, a million? Give a, there must be a number that which you'd be going, that's enough now. There is an extraordinary case. A court has basically told the Foreign Office that a family from Gaza, 6 members of the family, they've got a family member somewhere in England, so a distant second cousin or something, and they have appealed for human rights, the right to come to this country because their life is intolerable. They've been displaced, they've been bombed, they're hungry in Gaza, and the right of this family to come to this country. The Foreign Office said no because it would open the floodgates. The court has said that the Foreign Office has to think again. And now, bearing in mind that a large swathe of Labour MPs and probably some of the cabinet think that actually we should be taking asylum seekers, they would see them from Gaza, that would open the floodgates. But given where we are with an emergency cabinet meeting being held today by the Prime Minister, a sudden new emergency, nothing has changed. Sorry, nothing has changed since the last cabinet meeting. But he's got pressure from Labour backbenchers. I think 200 have now signed this letter. He's got Angela Rayner snapping at his heels and a sort of, showing a bit of leg. Not when she's meeting with Muslim community leaders, then she's in full, Victorian attire, but otherwise showing a bit of leg to Labour lefty backbenchers going, hi, I'm an alternative leader in waiting. And they're going to have a debate about and a conversation about whether they should recognise the state of Palestine, a state which simply does not exist in any meaningful sense. And such as it does, it's run by two pretty much terrorist organisations.
And it's another reminder of how screwed up their priorities are. I mean, I think, as ever, when you've got a government and a Prime Minister who have become increasingly disliked domestically, there's this desire to pivot back to the international stage. But I just don't think they're going to be able to ignore the domestic situation for much longer, for all the reasons that we've been talking about. It's getting worse. More and more people are noticing it. I was out on Sunday reporting from the Canary Wharf protest outside of the Britannia Hotel. And what's interesting, not only are more people coming more emboldened to come out and make their voices heard, they're also not straight out of central casting the way that you might expect. A lot of families, interracial couples, people of all different backgrounds, legal migrants as well. There was a group of Chinese migrants there, young
I saw that
professionals
footage
who were holding up a banner saying legal against illegal migrants. And this is, I think, a reminder that this is well beyond the idea that these are kind of out-of-town agitators. It's kind of local communities, either the kind of, in that case, the kind of local Isle of Dogs working class communities, as well as the kind of incoming young professionals from abroad, coming together to voice their displeasure about this.
Exactly.
And I think now, as a consequence of that, there has to be some sort of response. But no one seriously believes that Labour is capable of digesting this issue, let alone acting in response to it. So therefore, you're just left with them continuing to thrash around, try and change the subject to anything else, and wait for the eventual electoral collapse. That's what it feels like.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, again, if they actually did deal with any of this, if Donald Trump's advice was heeded by Keir Starmer and he cut taxes, he stopped the boats, low energy prices, all of that, to beat Nigel Farage, would that sway your vote? Would that actually make you go, I'll vote for Keir Starmer if he actually does the stuff that actually I want? Or would, even if he did it, if you believed he would do it, or capable of doing it, would you still go, no, I wouldn't vote for him. I'd still want another alternative at the next election. I'd love to have your thoughts on that. Give us a call, 03444 499 1000. You can text the word talk in your message to 87222. Get in touch with us on X at Talk TV. Calls are charged at the national rate. Text cost £1, standard network rate message. Something else I want to talk about, this is very, very important, which is today is the first anniversary of the Southport attack, in which 3 little girls were stabbed to death. Another 8 little girls were also stabbed, some having horrific, life-changing injuries, 2 adults as well. Axel Rudikabana is now behind bars for the best part of his life, thank God. Clearly he should have been stopped beforehand. Clearly there were too many opportunities that were missed. There are too many people on our streets who are a danger to us. This has opened up a whole can of worms in terms of the prevent strategy and their failures as well. Social workers, police, security services, everybody. But of course also in the wake of the Southport attack we did have the riots. We did have the outrageous, I say, disinformation that went out from the government, and the lies about and the lies of omission about what we could or could not know about the suspected killer at that time. The ricin that was found in his home, and the Al Qaeda terror training manual that were not disclosed until I think October of last year, ahead of the trial. There are people still in prison right now over those riots, not for violence. And you know what? You throw a brick at a police officer, you threaten to actually go to a hotel and burn down a hotel with asylum seekers in it, you absolutely should be behind bars. But people like Lucy Connolly and others who wrote tweets in anger, in distress when they heard the news about these children, hers was deleted, still behind bars right now. And this, of course, as we've now got the Online Safety Act coming in, more and more control, more and more censorship of what we can see and what we can say online. Your thoughts on that, Tom?
Well, there's so much, isn't there? I think starting with the attack itself, I think one of the reasons that it's so horrific is because it's the depravity of it, the barbarism of it, is something that you're very rarely confronted with as a society. It's not to say that we haven't had horrific kind of child killings before, we haven't had serial killers and so on.
But this one hit us all in the stomach.
Absolutely, the details of it, the fact that these were young defenceless girls, all of these things I think were so uniquely horrifying. What then gets piled on top of that is that you hear such a familiar story, which is that this killer was very much known to the authorities. He wasn't on a terror watch list or anything like that, not as some of the kind of misinfo merchants of the hard right were trying to suggest in the wake of those attacks, but he was referred to prevent 3 times. He, after having showed up to school with weapons, attacked classmates, it was quite clear that whilst he wasn't an ideological terrorist in the way that we might conventionally think of them, he was obsessed with violence, he was obsessed with murder, he was luxuriating in those kinds of materials, everything from things in Northern Ireland through to things that had happened in Africa, through to terror attacks in the Islamist sort of worldview. And this was obviously someone who needed to be taken off the streets, who needed to be dealt with, who needed to be put in some kind of institution, and yet because he didn't fit into one category or the other, it was a computer says no. It was
totally,
So, and then it's because of that kind of fundamental failure, because of the fact that this is the sort of thing that people have almost come to expect from a government and a state that seemingly can't keep even its most vulnerable citizens safe. It's precisely that mistrust of the establishment which helps create the kind of atmosphere that we saw afterwards. It's not to excuse it, but people saw what happened in Southport. They saw that information was being withheld from them and they assumed the worst. They believed things that were put out by genuinely bad actors on the internet because of the fact that they've really ceased to be able to even listen to the state when it tries to inform them as to what's going on or to tell them why they can't give them certain information. So
and we're seldom being told that when did the Prime Minister know about the ricin and the terror manual? And so when he went on television and said, this is all being stirred up by the far right, this isn't a terror attack, and when he was saying those things, did he already know? Of course he sodding well did, otherwise he would say I wasn't told about this. There's no way in the world he didn't know about this stuff. But again, I think a lot of people feel like the attack on freedom of speech since then, and again there are lots of things, and again I don't hold Lucy Connolly up as a paragon of virtue. I think what she wrote was absolutely foul. I don't hold those thoughts. Even in the wake of John dying, she herself had lost a child. I can understand she felt that people say and do things in the heat of the moment. She deleted that tweet. There's no evidence whatsoever that what she wrote, burn all the effing hotels down with the asylum seekers in it for all I care. There's no evidence whatsoever that anyone went, oh well, because Lucy wrote that on Twitter, I went and did it. No evidence at all. And yet we have seen even people who've taken part in grooming gangs. Hugh Edwards, who was sent and didn't seem to have an issue with being sent porn of babies being raped.
And it's
babies being raped. Okay, no prison time whatsoever. But what she wrote, she's still in prison now. The two-tier justice, the two-tier courts, the two-tier policing. We've seen the two-tier policing even around, the Bell Hotel, the bussing in and bussing out again of the hard left. They're the extremists. They are properly extremists. These people. These are the pro-migration, socialist work a lot. They are properly extreme. A lot of them wearing masks. It's always a giveaway when people are wearing masks. Okay, and the police they are constantly now taking sides when we've got these troubles on our streets.
And it's also the warped priorities, isn't it? Because of the fact that obviously, as we've already talked about, anyone who engaged in that despicable racist violence that gripped the country in the wake of Southport, of course they should have the book thrown at them. I don't think anyone has any problem with that. The fact that the same vigour was being visited upon people who had posted, again, quite despicable, often quite racist things on the internet, just struck most ordinary, sensible people as if, at best, a complete waste of time, and at worst, quite sinister in the context of a crackdown of freedom of speech. And it wasn't just Lucy Connolly. There were people. There was a young man who was given an even longer sentence for copying and pasting what she had posted and sending it out to his 127 followers. The idea that that could have sparked anything is obviously beyond me. People just posting racist material, again, despicable, but we're not talking about inciting violence. People posting misinformation were arrested, in some cases actually prosecuted. So, but
when it was posted by, the leader of Hope Not Hate, he posted that there'd been an acid attack on a Muslim woman, absolutely made up nonsense. Police never turned up at his door, and that was absolutely something that could have incited violence the other way around, but no action taken against him. That's the thing. I'd tell you what, if you want to take part in any of these protests against migrant hotels, you want to join the Free Speech Union first, and you need to absolutely then call them up if you do get arrested for saying things. You're doing stuff. I think, it's about free speech, not free violence, But I would strongly suggest join the Free Speech Union so you've got that legal advice. But, that's my strong advice to you.